you have to know more about the product than how to play it, than how to use it sometimes. So yeah, I get it. Um, let's come back here to Mantra and Neural DSP. So I assume that this is the first of many studio products, so to speak.
I mean, yeah, that has always been the intention, as I was mentioning before. Mantra is the first. I can't really tell you in which direction we'll go later, but we're definitely considering doing more in the future. Yeah. But just to reassure also all the Neural DSP fans out there, like it doesn't mean that we're gonna drop everything guitar related, even in the software world. Like this was more of an attempt of, you know, seeing what kind of interest we could get from a plugin like this, being known as mostly as a metal guitar company. Um, Nobody was quite expecting us to go in that direction. And actually, the day of the release, like I was stressed out like crazy. I was like, "Is this gonna how well is it gonna be received?" And well, we've done our job right because like the plugin got many praises. But yeah, it's so it was the first one. Will probably not be the last, and don't worry, we'll keep doing guitar plugins as well.
So I assume that you chose the vocal area because did you feel it was the most needed? It was the area that requires the most processing?
I think as if you're like a, let's say, advanced to semi-pro user, like you have many options when you can that you can use to process vocals, but like usually like the flow is quite broken, like the workflow is quite broken. And what we've identified as an opportunity was basically how can we streamline that workflow and how can we provide something that works in real time, which was what we discussed before with the tracking mode. So the biggest opportunity for us was there. Offer something that would be simple enough to use for beginners, but like with enough features that it would attract a more semi-pro to pro audience, without any compromises on the sound or the ease of use, and that would work real time. And if you put all that together, then you get Mantra pretty much.
You know, I want to come back to quad cortex for a second. Do you ever get players pushback over latency?
There's a really small portion of people who will tell you that they can notice the latency when they play. If you take into consideration roundback latency when you play guitar, especially when you're a guitarist, like I'm not even talking about like studio environment or anything like this. I don't have the exact numbers in mind, but I think 10 milliseconds of latency is the same thing as standing 3 meters away from your amplifier. So I think that's in this ballpark. I don't have the exact number. Feel free to back me up on this if you know the exact one. So telling that you can feel it is, well, I'm sure some people feel it, but it's a very minor part of the people using quad cortex and our stuff.
The reason why I mention is when way back when Line 6 first came out with their first unit, and I can't remember the name of it, but
The pod.
the pod, yes, right. And I was a beta tester on it, and I thought it was just fine, you know, in terms of latency. And I can remember talking to the product manager, and he was naming all of these big names, big name guitar players that were saying they can't use it because of the latency. And it was 6 milliseconds. I'm thinking to myself, this is amazing. How can they feel that? It must be in the same realm of hearing the difference between what batteries you're using in you know, your pedals. But I couldn't feel it personally.
Me playing with the quad cortex or with any of our plugins using the smallest buffer size, like I can't feel the latency personally. It has never been something that bothered me. But like the worst part is when you start like adding latency up, whether you're like playing guitar or recording vocals. And I think that's what happened most of the time with those pro guitarists is that, sure, like you have the latency of your modular, let's say, but then maybe in front of it you have a Digitech Whammy that has like ADA conversion, and then after this it will go to a PA that has like a linear phase crossover filter, and then you will get like more latency. So one on top of the other, it will end up and result in something that you can feel for sure. quad cortex alone with headphones, I mean, I can't feel anything, and most people can't.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Sometimes when I hear about that, I'm thinking, geez, what are they feeling? You know, but again, it makes sense if you start to layer a lot of processors on, then yeah, that makes sense, and that's probably what happens, I would imagine.
Yeah, that was what we learned also, like building Mantra, is that if you take into consideration like a standard vocal chain, you will probably have anywhere between 4 to 6 plugins just on the channel. Each of these plugins will induce the like at least 32 samples of latency, because like you have to have this as a buffer between plugins.
That's not much.
So if you have 6 plugins, you take like 32 samples times 6 plus the latency induced by the processors themselves. In the end, you can easily get to, I don't know, 200 milliseconds or something like this. So that's also the beauty of the all-in-one solution, is that those buffers, like, we can minimize them because we don't have like multiple instances. We can just pack everything into one single block that will do it all and reduce the latency this way. And that was the biggest opportunity to us.
Who do you see using Mantra? Who is the biggest audience for that?
Honestly, like I would say pretty advanced user, like intermediate to advanced user. Like the people who have a home studio at home that like to record themselves, that have like a potentially like some work to do fast or issues to solve fast, and they don't want necessarily to spend the time to, you know, try to dig and how to notch every single frequency or whatever. I'm saying this because like one of the hit features in Mantra is the what we call the sculpt module, which is a smart EQ that basically takes your frequency response and matches it to references that we've designed internally. And by doing so, you can basically tame down the resonances of your room, or basically correct the microphone that you're using. So in that regard, it's a very smart feature. And of course, you could do the same thing manually by creating notches in FabFilter Pro Q or something like this. But like here, you just hit play, record for 7 seconds, and you get like a pretty good outcome of it. And for these kind of features, like Mantra is super nice. You have a okay home studio, nasty resonances, you get this, it's fine. And then, yeah, I mean, you will all get the pros that will tell you that they prefer their full signal chain, full of analog gear, etc. We're not trying to convince that everybody that our stuff is better than what they're used to. But I think that for most people, you can get like 90% there just with Mantra on any, like, let's say, modern genre or contemporary genre.
Okay, let's go back to Sculpt for a second. So you say it's smart in that it's it takes a sample of the vocal and it compares it to what exactly? To is it to a table of other vocals that you think that sounds good?
Well, without being too technical, basically we do an analysis for like, I think it's 7 seconds of a bit of audio. That gets we get the average frequency response of these 7 seconds, and then in Mantra you have 12 different presets that you can choose from, which are target curves, and these have been designed using, well, basically a white noise through a bunch of different filters to get to ideal frequency responses, and then we match your 7 seconds of audio, like the frequency response, the average frequency response, to this target. This is how it works. But on top of that, you have a compressor, or should I say like a spectral compressor, that will basically attenuate whatever is like above the target curve if it goes above a certain volume, which means that you can basically cancel the room modes. You can it can act as a de-esser. If the S's, the sibilances, are too high compared to the target, then they will get reduced. And it also acts as some sort of a normalizer before hitting the rest of the chain. So if you think about it, it's like your fast track to polished vocals very, very fast. And it's located at the beginning of the chain because it does like all the leveling and the nice work before the rest of the chain.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is, I mean, there's a lot of smart equalizers, for instance, and what they'll do is they'll have a table of what is considered the best sounding guitar, for instance, and they do 100 of them, and okay, this is the best sounding one, so let's make your guitar sound just like this. But that doesn't work in mixing because it's how it fits with the rest of the track that's important. Now,
Absolutely.
that being said, the way you're doing it makes a lot more sense. And I have a story about this. So I did an album with, I was a producer. I did an album with Ken Scott, the great engineer producer, did David Bowie and the Beatles, and he would always use the same microphones, and he would always have the same EQ on the same microphones. And I was wondering, okay, why is he doing this? So one day we have a drum track and we need a second set of drums, just, a different drum sound. So he pulls the first drums out, puts the second one in, doesn't change anything at all, doesn't change the EQ, and it sounded great. And it occurred to me he was EQing the microphone, not the drum sound. It's like, well, that's pretty brilliant. Actually, that's the right way to do it when it's all said and done. And not many approach things that way. But you're closer to that than most smart EQs, for instance.
I mean, yeah, that's, if you think about it, yeah, he was EQing the microphone and probably the resonances of the room at the same time.
Yes.
And that was kind of the approach with Mantra, like remove the resonances, remove the annoying bits, and then later on in the chain, you have another EQ that you can use to, color the sound a little bit more. You'll get compression, you'll get saturation. But like this sculpt module is just, it's a problem solver for EQ and compression, basically.